Hello, world and all who inhabit it. My name is Jessica J, aka Jessie J Plays, and welcome to the first Patreon exclusive episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Junior Trials. This is going to be a monthly release. This is going to be a little bit looser, a little bit unedited, but we'll have some fun nonetheless. These videos that I post on my Patreon are going to involve me participating in one of our two monthly junior trials tournaments. The idea is that I want to host a tournament each month, each new release year, before we record an episode, me and my respective co-hosts that I have chosen for each subsequent year, to dip my toes into the format and just try my best to build a good deck and play and beat my fellow Discord users. So we're gonna go ahead and see how well I do that today with our first Junior Trials Future Vision tournament, and I participated in this tournament with the deck list that you see in front of you. This was a very early on in the format build that I brewed, the idea essentially being to just build the biggest, summon the biggest guys and have a plan in place for whatever little guy shenanigans might pop up. We've got Tribute to the Doom, we've got Fisher, we've got the Noblemans, we've got all the biggest guys that are available to us. We also have 3 copies of Giant Rat, 2 copies of Labyrinth Wall, and 2 copies of Millennium Shield, because whenever I built this deck, I judged that the 3K defenders would be very powerful and very difficult to get over. So basically, we are just trying to get board presence to keep our opponent from being able to get in until we have the opportunity to gain advantage with our very large guys and our removal. So let's go ahead and see how that worked for me. So we're gonna jump into the document here that I have, and right away we're gonna take a look at my first game of the tournament, which would ultimately be up against Scheme 165. Right off the bat, Scheme is going to set Nimble Mamanga. I'm not entirely sure why I started off with such an aggressive giant Trunade. I'm not sure what my thought process was in that moment, but I guess I'm starting off with Giant Rat. Scheme has a face-down Kazajin. I summon a Dark Magician and attack into the Nimble Mamanga, which means that Scheme gets to gain 1,000 life points and summon 2 Nimble Mamanga. So now Scheme gets to Dust Tornado my Solemn Judgment, and gets Trihorn Dragon out to beat Dark Magician. Continuing to just maintain my board presence here with the Giant Rat being destroyed, summoning out the Labyrinth Wall, and the Wingweaver starts to cut through the Nimble Mamangas. Trihorn Dragon is unable to get over Wingweaver because of the Mirror Wall, but then I lose the Mirror Wall. Take out the last Nimble Mamanga. Pot of Greed will draw 2. And right off the bat, we are seeing my general strategy of 3K guys being something that Scheme isn't able to get past, even as Scheme is very much maintaining the attack point, like board presence line, with my Wingweaver going down and the combination Kazajin and Sword Hunter in play. I decide to Fisher the Kazajin because otherwise it's a big pain in the ass. Trihorn Dragon over the Sword Hunter. And at this point, Scheme is going to deploy the main strategy of the deck, which is Gaia Power. This is funny. This actually ended up being the a version of the deck that I played in the first episode of Junior Trials because I was just so tickled by this little strategy of using Gaia Power to power up all of our Earth monsters. And on top of all of that, this is the moment where I realized the pure folly, the unadulterated hubris of my strategy of 3k guys is that all of the 3k guys in this format are earth monsters. And while Gaia Power increases the attack of earth monsters, it also decreases their defense, so this is actually a disastrous matchup for me in a way that's quite hilarious. At this point, I decide that I can't really deal with Sword Hunter getting bigger and bigger, so I put Metamorph on Trihorn Dragon. Buster Blader, with a combination of a dragon on my field buffing it up and the Gaia Power, is able to take on even a Trihorn Dragon with Metamorph on it. And once again, I am on the short end of the stick when it comes to attack point monsters. A really good Heavy Storm, but Buster Blader is still in a position to beat both of my 3k guys, and on top of that, Nobleman of Crossout takes out the Kazejin. At this point, we see that the kind of downside of Tribute to the Doom. I thought it would be a good way to deal with both face-up monsters and face-down monsters. I anticipated seeing both Bunguses and kind of Jar shenanigans, so I thought Tribute to the Doom would be nice. But I do have to discard my last bit of resources in order to make it happen. Scheme's gonna get a huge Dark Hole off and then summon Elephantis. And that is gonna do it for me with a bad draw off the top. We go into game 2. Gaia Power is going to buff up the Sword Hunter. I'm going to use MST on the back row and get in with Blue Eyes right off the bat. Fisher takes down Blue Eyes, and now we have a really big Elephantis. And once again, just really stuck in this position where I have 3k walls, but they do not beat Elephantis because of this fucking Gaia Power. On the bright side, I have a Fisher for the monster and get in with Wingweaver, but I'm still not able to win any sort of battle with the Gaia Power out on board. Scheme just has a huge attack point advantage on me, and it's only gonna get bigger as this fucking Sword Hunter continues to get larger and larger every single turn. I try to ward it off with Mirror Wall to win this battle between Summon Skull and Sword Hunter, but Scheme is gonna come in with the Solemn Judgment to maintain their dominance over this game, destroying Summon Skull and slurping it up into the now undefeatable Sword Hunter, which is going to get me for all but 500 life points. And pretty much I just need this Mirror Wall to go through. And it does go through. I didn't do the math just now off the top of my head of whether or not the Mirror Wall could have helped Scheme. I don't think it could have. I guess I technically could have gotten lethal there just because the monster was in defense mode, but I was too scared of Mirror Force. Them's the terrain of the format, and folks, with a Dark Hole to take out my Summon Skull, following it up with a normal summon Nimble Mamanga for game, that is going to be a truly devastating defeat for me in this first match of the tournament. Oh boy. That leads me into the second match, which is going to be against Discord user A Happy Awu. Genuinely hoping to do a little bit better in this particular game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Awu's gonna start off with a face-up Labyrinth Wall to play around the Nobleman of Crossout, and is gonna follow it up with a Trap Master to take out my Trap Hole, which is going to allow the Wingweaver to safely enter the board. And now I have a very awkward choice to make with the Giant Rat. Which is, of course, that if I summon the Labyrinth Wall or the Millennium Shield in attack mode, then the fucking Trap Master can actually defeat it. So I go for just Giant Rat and try to use Dark Magician to take out that Trap Master. It connects. And now we have to deal with a massive Blue Eyes White Dragon, and the same problem that I ran into last turn, only instead of a 500 attack Trap Master, it's a 4,000 attack Blue Eyes White Dragon. So I'm pretty much just thinking at this point. And I do go into the giant rats just to kind of maintain my board presence to a certain extent, although unfortunately these Labyrinth Wall and Millennium Shields have just not done anything useful for me all day, essentially, because now I'm once again in a situation where all of my opponent's monsters beat the 3k wall. Nothing off the top to defeat that 4k Blue Eyes White Dragon, so I just set another 3k wall. And now Awu is going to draw into a Buster Blader, which I do not know about yet. Blue Eyes takes out Labyrinth, Wingweaver takes out Dark Magician. I have a Buster Blader, which is pretty good. The problem is that it's still not good enough to take out the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Very fascinating little move here to MST the Axe of Despair just to get it back, simply to maintain the massive, massive Blue Eyes White Dragon. Or to just not take damage from losing the monster. Now I finally have a strategy that is powerful enough to defeat the Blue Eyes White Dragon. I draw into Megamorph, bringing Summon Skull all the way up to 5,000 attack. Unfortunately, Awu has the Mirror Force to counter it. So I maintain my losing stance, and that's really gonna fucking solidify it. Happy Awu successfully activating Stop Defense on my 3k wall, and I just take an absolutely massive lethal amount of damage to the face. Awu is going to go into Pot of Greed, summoning a 3k wall. I'm going to summon a 3k wall. Awu's going to try to go for Sword Hunter. I go Trap Hole, and then Awu goes Monster Reborn to maintain the Sword Hunter. My next turn, I get to go into Tri-Horned Dragon, eating the Sword Hunter. Now we got Tri-Horned Dragon versus Tri-Horned Dragon. The one with the Axe of Despair is going to kill my Millennium Shield. However, this time around, I am able to use Megamorph in a different way. Instead of using it to buff my own monsters, I am able to use its other effect to cut Tri-Horned Dragon in half. And I'm able to defeat the 3850 Menace. Awu is going to give us a card destruction, which is not my favorite thing in the world. I lose two fairly powerful one-ofs. We go Tri-Horned into Magician of Faith. Magician of Faith gets the Pot of Greed back. Awu's just gonna keep kind of digging after they kill my giant rat. And then, very hilariously, I try to go Metal Morph into Tri-Horned Dragon to beat Labyrinth Wall, but Awu is able to chain their own Metal Morph to make Labyrinth Wall just big enough to ward off this Tri-Horned Dragon. We got a Kazajan outboard and an MST, and now we're gonna see an activation of Painful Choice, in which I go ahead and give Awu a Metal Morph. In anticipation of the Metal Morph, I'm gonna go ahead and use Giant Trunade here. And I just go ahead and lose the Summon Skull just so we can get the Kazajan off the board, set my own Metal Morph. Awu's gonna get in with the MST. Put Dark Magician at 5k with the Megamorph and attack the Labyrinth Wall, switching my monster to defense mode to play around Mirror Force. It connects, but then Awu has Dark Hole on their next turn. We've got another 3k wall. Cosmo Queen is not going to be able to get over it. We've got Cosmo Queen versus Cosmo Queen, and 3k wall versus 3k wall. The Mirror Force is going to stop the Cosmo Queen, but on a subsequent turn, the Metamorph into Tri-Horned is going to clear my Cosmo Queen. That's going to be Nobleman of Crossout taking out my Labyrinth Wall. Probably should have just summoned it in face-up attack mode to play around that. Trihorn Dragon's gonna take out Giant Rat, and I'm gonna get another 3k wall. But once again, Wu is going to successfully take it out with a Metamorph. I go Tribute to the Doomed on the biggest guy, but otherwise I am just sitting here with no resources as a Wu manages to trap hole my monster. However, a Monster Reborn off of the Buster Blader with 2 dragons in a Wu's graveyard is a good follow-up. So for the first time in this tournament, I'm starting to feel as though I have something resembling an advantage. Unfortunately, Wu is able to cancel that out with another Axe of Despair play. Now I'm looking at a 3750. And at that moment, I realize that I only have 3650 left. And with Trihorn Dragon attacking into my defense mode, Trihorn Dragon, I lose this one as well. How can I keep doing this? Alright, so at this point, I am thinking to myself, surely I can't go the whole tournament without winning a single game, right? My chances of getting into top cut are not looking the best, I won't lie. But at this point, I just want to win a game. I'm like, surely I can win a game. And someone from the dark is on a very interesting brew here, playing Mechanical Chaser, essentially on a machine-focused deck to utilize the power of limiter removal in this format. But in addition to that, we're seeing a lot of jar shenanigans, so right away, I am losing my monsters. We followed up with Guardian of the Throne Room. I tried to take it out, but get Mirror Force, so Guardian of the Throne Room attacks directly again. And now I just don't have any monsters. I'm thinking about Mirror Wall, but Mirror Walling the monsters feels so fucking bad. I think I would have been dead there, even if I, had chosen not to Mirror Wall. But unfortunately, what we just run into is that someone is able to Fissure both of my monsters, and then I just don't have any monsters. So I repeatedly get attacked by 1600 monsters and die. I just die. Someone is going to chain Waboku to my MST to make sure that I'm not able to get in with an attack. Takes a fair bit of damage, attacking the Guardian of the Throne Room into a 3k monster. In this instance, I attack Summon Skull into the Guardian of the Throne Room. Someone decides to go with limiter removal to win this battle, even though they will lose their Guardian at the end of the turn. Now we see Mask of Darkness bringing back the Waboku, which is hilarious. Choosing not to use it at this point, I'm able to get some damage, and then we see Spear Cretin. And now, with the Spear Cretin having gotten the Mask of Darkness back, at this point someone chooses to go Waboku to protect the Mask of Darkness from the Summoned Skull attack and get the Waboku back subsequently. So now we got the Spear Cretin loop in play, but I am able to utilize this Tribute to the Doomed for its intended use. Unfortunately, on the very next turn, I get Mirror Force for essentially my whole life savings. Someone choosing to Mirror Force one guy here, subsequently going Shallow Grave to summon a Spear Cretin. I'm going to summon a Trihorn Dragon. And at this point, we attack into the Cyber Jar, which is a bit devastating for me. I'm able to summon one guy, but not sure it's going to be enough. At this point, I attack Giant Rat into the Guardian of the Throne Room. Someone for the Dark Chains Waboku. Before we get to the damage step, I use the Giant Rat to summon a Labyrinth Wall, with the intention of going Metamorph, Labyrinth Wall, and destroying the monster. Then I realize that's not how that play works, so I simply pass my turn. And I was kind of expecting the Mirror Force to protect me off of that misplay, but with a heavy storm, I am now in a dire position, and it's only gonna get worse with a Mirror Wall to, demolish my first line of offense. Monster Reborn will protect Millennium Shield. Then Dark Magician is out to start killing these Guardians of the Throne Room, but at this point someone just has so many cards and so many flip monsters that do quite a bit. And off of the Morphing Jar number 2, I am not going to be able to summon anything. Someone for the Dark, on the other hand, does not have that problem. Someone for the Dark has Guys 4 days. We go Spear Cretin to summon a guy, and then subsequently go into Cyber Jar. We summon our Cyber Jar in off of the Cyber Jar in face down defense mode, but make a hilarious play by chaining Acid Trapple to immediately trigger a second copy of Cyber Jar. And with the limiter removal being a quick play in this format, the Mechanical Chaser getting in for lethal will be the end of my tournament journey. Now, I noticed that I did not win a single game. I did notice that fact about this particular tournament. It did not go the best for me personally. I did not make it into Top Cut. However, there are a number of people who did make it to Top Cut. So now let's go ahead and sit down and watch those people in Top Cut. Alrighty, so if you have never participated in or watched one of my Future Visions junior format tournaments, one thing you need to know about me is that I love a vibes-based Top Cut, and what I mean by that is over the course of the Swiss rounds that I participated in, where we determined the Top Cut, a total of 7 players did ultimately managed a record of X1 or better. And among those 7 people, only one of them, Aslion, Discord user, ended up with a record of X0. So, based off of that, I decided to invite all 7 of them to Top Cut, and essentially, because Aslion had the best record, give them a bye in the quarterfinals. So, we are actually going to be watching 3 quarterfinalist matches, and then 2 semifinal matches, and then the finals. So we are first going to watch a match between Z-Turkin and I'm not sure how to pronounce this. That's so many vowels. Is that like Reizawi? Reizawi. I'm gonna say Reizawi for now. It's Z-Turkin versus Reizawi. If I'm mispronouncing y'all's names, just like, I don't know, shout at me. But this is going to be the first match of the semifinals. So, right off the bat, we've got Reizawi is on a pretty extensive jar package. Meanwhile, Z-Turkin is on some Bunguses as well as Invader of the Throne. Let's see what Wingweaver is going to attack into. It's going to be Cyber Jar. So now we get to watch Cyber Jar resolve. Did we just draw that giant Trunade? I'll have to check the vid later. I think we might have just cheated there. It's fine. And of course, we've got Hero, Shadow Scout, and Morphing Jar number 2. Reizawi is very much on the deck outs strat in this instance. Whereas it's looking like Z-Turken is on a pretty standard Bungus list. We're gonna go Shadow Scout, and it's going to get Z-Turken a fairly decent number of cards in this instance. Hilariously, we are gonna Mirror Force to keep our Mask of Darkness from being attacked, just so that we can get some value off of the Mask of Darkness later. We'll flip summon it, get the Mirror Force back, and summon this guy. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it is going to be a 2100 attacker. Yeah, just trading blows at this point, just kind of hanging out. We're gonna go Spear Cretin for Morphing Jar number 2. Morphing Jar number 2 is going to get out a Cyber Jar and a Witch of the Black Forest. We get to Ceasefire to do some burn damage to Z-Turken, although Ceasefire will prevent the Cyber Jar from resolving. At this point, we're just hanging out with the Millennium Shield. Go Card Destruction. Z-Turken's starting to come pretty close to decking out at this point. That being said, we're going to use Witch to attack into the Millennium Shield. Now, at this point, we're going to get a pretty big burn swing with Ceasefire, a full 3,000 attack. And with a final Ceasefire to finish up the burn, that's going to be Reizawi with the first game. But starting off the second game, that's going to be a Nobleman of Crossout into Cyber Jar right off the bat. That is the best card in Reizawi's deck, so that is a huge start for Z-Turken. We'll go Wing Weaver directly. Reizawi doesn't have any back row to handle it. We go Prohibition, declare Nobleman of Crossout, just because the card is so bad against Reizawi's strategy, but unfortunately, Z-Turken is going to have a Man-Eater bug to clear out this flip monster without consequence anyway. We got a Mirror Force to stop a lethal push, and we follow it up with a card destruction on the next turn. But once again, we get to use Darkhold to take out the Spear Cretin, make sure that Reizawi isn't really resolving the flip effects they want to. Was that Darkhold at the start of this turn? No, that was last turn. Yeah, at this point, Reizawi attempts to activate, cheat and activate a second trap card, but is unable to. We wait for the next turn, therefore, and at that point, Reizawi goes Dust Tornado. Z-Turken's able to chain Dust Tornado to take out the Solemn Judgment. And, unfortunately, that is going to be just all of Reizawi's defenses, so that will lead us into the Game 3. Not as lucky of a Man-Eater bug hit as Z-Turken saw largely in previous games. Instead of hitting a flip effect, they're going to hit a Sandgan, which will let Reizawi search their deck. We'll go Wing Weaver into Hero Shadow Scout, which is going to get Z-Turken deeper into their deck and allow them to draw a couple cards. We go Wing Weaver into the Spear Cretin. And the Spear Cretin's going to get Hero, which is going to mill 2 spell cards and draw Z-Turken 1. Dust Tornado for Dust Tornado. Invader of the Throne actually coming in clutch here by stealing Reizawi's Cyber Jar and refusing to allow them to resolve it. Very, very funny use of this particular card. And it looks like Z-Turken's going to get in for a huge amount of damage. with that, the Reizawi's going to try to attack into the known Cyber Jar that was stolen from them with Witch of the Black Forest, and Z-Turken is going to protect it with Mirror Force, allowing Reizawi to successfully get a search on. But unfortunately, the Invader of Darkness is going to allow Z-Turken to once again play around the Spear Cretin, not allow it to resolve, and therefore has Lethal will be winning this first match of the quarterfinals. Alright, We'll go ahead and follow that match up with one between Kylans and Scheme 165, who, of course, absolutely kicked my teeth in the Swiss rounds. Kylans is on a very interesting little deck list here. Gonna start with Delinquent Duo, cutting out 2 of Scheme's cards. We followed up with a Sword Hunter to attack the Witch of the Black Forest, and unfortunately not going to work exactly the way Scheme is looking for, with Michizure taking out the Sword Hunter. It looks like Kylans is going to cheat and use Witch of the Black Forest twice in one turn. Unfortunately, we've seen a decent amount of people forgetting the errata on Witch of the Black Forest, but that is okay. Guy of the Fierce Knight is out on the board, and Scheme has a Nobleman for that Witch of the Black Forest. Kylans has a Dust Tornado for that call. The Sangan is going to go into Relinquish, so it looks like Kylans is on the Relinquish deck, but just not seeing the kind of, just not seeing the sort of ritual cards that they are necessarily looking for. Get a Pot of Greed here, followed up with Maneater Bug. But this is lethal if Kylans doesn't, yeah, he's going to Mirror Force. Followed up with Sonic Bird, get Black Illusion Ritual, which doesn't do a whole lot right now, but might be good for future turns. Trihorn Dragon's gonna go over Sonic Bird. And by chaining Metamorph in the damage step, Scheme can secure their victory, despite Kylans at one point cheating with Witch of the Black Forest. In game 2, Kylans gets to start off with Dragon Seeker to immediately kill Trihorn Dragon and get in for 2k damage. Scheme's gonna follow it up with Kazajin to kill Dragon Seeker, Tribute to the Doom, the Kazajin, and then White Magical Hat to discard a card from Scheme's hand. Kylans' deck is very interesting to me. It's like, it has Relinquished in it, and then it's also a combination of like White Magical Hat and Delinquent Duo to essentially rob your opponents of resources at any available cost, with the downside of playing smaller guys. We'll see how it works. For right now, we've gotten rid of Scheme's hand, but Kylans isn't able to cobble together enough damage to get lethal, and with the Nobleman of Crossouts, oh, but unfortunately Kylans has the big brain play to immediately Dust Tornado the newest set, which was entirely correct, because if that Mirror Force had remained on the field, Scheme could have survived. As it is, we will be moving into game 3. In this instance, Kylans will not be using the Michizure, and it's looking like, for right now, we will play Witch of the Black Forest legally. And that is the end of that. Witch of the Black Forest's errata says, you cannot activate cards or effects of the cards with that name for the rest of the turn, so this effect is not supposed to resolve. We are just cheating back and forth with Witch of the Black Forest, and that is, you know, sometimes that's how it is. Kylans is going to get Sonic Bird into Garnicia Elephantis. We'll try to go Sword Hunter, it'll get Mirror Force, Sonic Bird to defense mode, Buster Blader over the Elephantis. And we'll go Tribute to the Doomed to get rid of a Maneater bug and not allow it to resolve. Getting with a decent amount of damage here. Scheme's starting to get into a danger spot at this point. Scheme sitting there with 3k life points left. Luckily for them, Kylan's does not have many big guys to take advantage of the situation. However, that is going to be a relinquished, which will go ahead and take control of the Tri-Horn Dragon. But with the Dust Tornado to get rid of Relinquished, the monster that was equipped to Relinquished, and reducing it back to 0, Scheme stays in the game and is in fact favored from this position with a Blue Eyes White Dragon into an attack position Relinquished. Dark Hole will take out the Blue Eyes, but Kylan still does not have a big enough monster to close it out. And with the Dark Hole into Garnicia Elephantis, Scheme is able to take the match despite Kylan's cheating like 2 or 3 separate times with Witch of the Black Forest. Congratulations to Scheme in what was a closer than probably should have been game 3, ultimately coming out on top with some pretty reasonable Bungus gameplay. That leads us nicely into the third and final match of the quarterfinals between someone from the dark and Discord user A Happy Awoo. Let's see who can come out on top here. A Happy Awoo on a 50 card deck also managed to... Oh, these are both people who kicked my ass. This is the kicked Jess's ass finals in a matter of being. Yeah, I generally would guess that Awoo is favored in this situation. Someone has such a silly deck with the Guardian of the Throne Room situation, whereas Awoo is playing a more standard list, but of course, someone has a lot of jar stuff, jar shenanigans going on, so we will certainly see how this plays out. So we go Waboku, and we're able to use it to Morphing Jar number 2. And the nice thing about Waboku here is that it lets someone from the dark summon additional monsters off of this one Morphing Jar number 2 activation. Awoo will go ahead and summon Tri-Horn Dragon, slowly cutting through someone from the dark's monsters. Someone will summon the Cyber Jar, and Awoo will go ahead and just attack into it. Yeah, part of the idea behind playing these smaller machine guys is to, like, have guys to summon whenever your Cyber Jar results. However, it does seem that Awoo and someone are going to get the same number of monsters off of this particular activation. Magician of Faith, unfortunately, has nothing to search off of it, though, so not super optimal, but in this instance that changes with the Pot of Greed that Awoo can go ahead and recycle. A devastating Heavy Storm that is only slightly marred by someone being able to Waboku, but even with a Waboku online, Awoo will simply choose to attack into the Cyber Jar anyway, simply to proc it. And it looks like we're going to get one monster each. A Guardian of the Throne Room on... Oh, no, 2 monsters. Guardian of the Throne Room and Morphing Jar number 2 versus a Cyber Jar. As well as sorted spell and trap cards. Guardian of the Throne Room going to attack into Cyber Jar, resolving its effect once again. We've seen a ton of Cyber Jars over the course of this. And that is going to be a pretty meaningful activation of Cyber Jar for someone from the dark. What is could not account for Mirror Force? Are we experiencing a rare DB glitch? That would be annoying. Pause, next play. We are glitched out. Hold on. Alright, well, we're back. I've literally never experienced that glitch in Dueling Book in my life. We simply had to reload the replay and get back to this point. But yeah, we're back. Someone from the Dark has a huge push with Cyberjar, and with the limiter removal is able to convert it into a victory. Going into game 2, Happy Wu is able to Pot of Greed into a Labyrinth Wall. It looks like this one is a little bit of a slower one for now. Shadow of Eyes will prevent the Maneater Bug from doing anything. Someone from the Dark will use Waboku to not take any damage. And now we've got Fairy Meteor Crush on this Tri-Horn Dragon, which would make it very devastating versus someone from the Dark's deck, which is why we will go Mirror Force. We're able to go Trap Master into a Mirror Force, following it up with a hilariously Trap Master attacking Spear Kraton does not resolve its effect because it needs to be destroyed, and they just tie. Go Mirror Force for a couple of little guys here, but if someone from the Dark's deck has proven anything, it's that sometimes little guys can hit hard if you are able to. They can hit hard if you are able to use them with limiter removal. We've got an Acid Trap Hole on the Cyberjar to prevent it from getting Nobleman of Cross-outed and being in order to resolve it, which is going to be a full 4 summons on someone from the Dark side. Now, Happy Wu is going to get a couple card destructions out of this. That's going to give them the opportunity to dig pretty deep into someone from the Dark's deck, searching for that. Deck out WinCon. Continuing to trade blows here, nothing super definitive. A stop defense on Cyberjar will go ahead and resolve its effect once again. Someone from the Dark starting to get a little bit low on card counts here. I was just like absolutely enamored whenever I saw that particular trap card there, but we are going to try Blue Eyes White Dragon into Mechanical Chaser. Someone will have the Mirror Wall, but a Wu will have the follow-up Metal Morph to get over it. For a truly, absolutely bizarre attack point stat line, which is going to leave someone from the Dark on 7,787 life points. You don't see that every day. The Big Blue Eyes is going to lose to Mirror Force, but with a card destruction digging really deep into someone from the Dark's deck. Deck out is a real possibility for them at this point in the game. They've got to make a push. Trap Master will take out Ceasefire, and Mystical Space Typhoon will take out a Waboku. We're not activating the Waboku because we want to go Acid Trap Hole into the Morphing Jar number 2. A little bit risky, but it does put monsters back into someone from the Dark's deck. But that is it, unfortunately. With that, someone from the Dark will deck out next turn and simply doesn't have the sauce to get lethal here. I don't know if there was like really a way to get lethal from this position. So that's going to be someone from the Dark's defeat by deck out, leading into game 3. And it's starting off on a strong note right away with Cyberjar into Magician of Faith on Owu's side, and Mask of Darkness and Morphing Jar number 2 on someone's side. And that's gonna be a beefy card destruction. Once again, digging deep into someone from the Dark's deck, looking for that deck out strategy. Someone from the Dark is going to get a Mask of Darkness off and followed up with a Morphing Jar number 2. Dust Tornado to take out the newest spell trap, which is a Dust Tornado. We'll go with Boku to protect the Maneater Bug, which takes out the Buster Blader, followed up with Monster Reborn on Khazajin. Someone has a ton of monsters protecting himself at this point, but doesn't have an easy path to getting a lethal line before they're at risk of decking out again. Delinquent Duo is very interesting in a Happy Awoo's deck list. I would think you would want someone to maintain more cards in their hand to make card destruction a little bit more lethal. But you know, Awoo does seem to be winning this game, so maybe I'm the idiot. Once again, resolving Morphing Jar number 2's effect. A nice ceasefire from someone from the Dark side. Looks like Owoo has Catapult Turtle, which is very silly. Maneater Bug kills Cosmo Queen. And yeah, we're just grabbing Ceasefire again. It continues to be a very strong source of damage. Actually, a very good burn card in jar format. We go Mechanical Chaser into Magician of Faith, into card destruction. Someone's going to set as much as they can, but that stop defense on the Cyberjar for someone from the Dark in this position with this few cards in their deck is a little bit of a problem. We'll get a couple of Morphing Jar number 2s, but we can't really afford to be continuing to resolve this guy's effect at this stage, I don't think. Catapult Turtle over Maneater Bug, and Maneater Bug kills Catapult Turtle. We get to go Magician of Faith for Mystical Space Typhoon. And with a limiter removal on board, someone from the Dark was pretty close to cobbling together a lethal line there. Honestly, I think they had this... No, there isn't a Mirror Force back there, so I guess Owoo maybe would have had to stop it with like a Solemn Judgment or something, but I don't know if they would have had the foresight to be able to do that. But yeah, the idea, what I was thinking of is that like if Morphing Jar number 2 was like a machine monster, I think someone had lethal in that instance. But as it is, this is kind of devastating. Once again, someone from the Dark is down to just 5 cards in their deck. And Owoo is going to sit there with a Labyrinth Wall. Someone from the Dark is going to try to get over it with the limiter removal, and Owoo is immediately going to Solemn Judgment it. MST to take out the newest of the back row, and a card destruction for 2, which is probably good enough at this point. Oh, interesting. You cannot resolve Morphing Jar number 2 if you don't have enough cards in your deck to resolve it, I guess? Is that how it works? Fascinating. He's gonna take it back, though, but Owoo does have card destruction to solidify this game. And yeah, that is going to be the quarterfinals. We have our semi-finalists. Alright, let's get the first list of the semifinals. Or the first replay of the semifinals, I should say. Which is going to be Z-Turken versus a Happy Awoo. Z-Turken has managed to defeat the Jar deck one time, so we'll go ahead and see if they're able to do it again. A Happy Awoo on Axe of Despair once again. Mystical Space Typhoon is going to make Tri-Horn Dragon too small to take out the 3k Defender. Nobleman takes out the other 3k Defender, but for right now, we're basically just chilling. A lot of small guys. Right now, Z-Turken is actually sitting on a killer strategy with this sword and shield. The problem, I imagine, is that they are worried about running into Mirror Force, so they don't necessarily want to commit too hard to it. They'll use one of them here to take out the Tri-Horn Dragon, and a Happy Awoo is going to normal summon Shadow Ghoul. Oh, it's a Shadow Ghoul strategy. That's gonna take out one of the 3k walls, but we get to follow it up with Tri-Horn Dragon into the Shadow Ghoul. Nobleman into the Mask of Darkness, which is pretty decent. But yeah, we are mostly just hanging out at this point. Invader of the Throne unable to resolve because it was destroyed by battle. Tri-Horn Dragons trade with each other. Wingweaver unable to take out this dragon. Premature Burial into Tri-Horn Dragon takes out the Wingweaver. We'll attack the Trap Master, which takes out Trap Hole. And Awoo is just sitting on 2 3k guys for the time being. Z-Turken is gonna try to make a push with Sword and Shield, and Happy Awoo is going to follow it up with Solemn Judgment. I don't know if many people in the history of the world have activated Solemn Judgment in response to Sword and Shield, but in this instance, it was correct. Monster Reborn for some dragon-on-dragon violence, and then a little bit more. Not the best Shadow of Eyes activation for sure. We'll go Trunade, chain Dust Tornado on the Trap Hole. Kazajan will take out this guy. Dust Tornado will prevent Z-Turken from sticking anything. But Kazajan is unable to get over the Wing Weaver. Both players are decently low on life points at this point. Looks like this one might come down to the wire. That is a beefy Dark Hole. It's just the fact that Z-Turken didn't have anything to follow it up with, but with that follow-up Heavy Storm and a Giant Trunade on Z-Turken's turn to follow it up, I believe this is going to be the end of game 1. Unless, yeah, no, Awoo doesn't have, like, any Karibo shenanigans or what have you, so Z-Turken, on that game 1, gets to follow it up game 2 with a Pot of Greed into Maneater Bug, which you certainly don't mind seeing, but then Awoo is going to do one of the funniest ways to out Maneater Bug, activating Stop Defense on a face-down Maneater Bug, forces its effect to activate because it is mandatory, and if it's the only monster on the field, it must kill itself. So Awoo is going to get a pretty easy tempo swing here. Z-Turken gets to follow it up with Dark Hole and a Wing Weaver of their own. But now Awoo once again has the bigger monster, and these Invaders of the Throne are not doing for Z-Turken what they want. And I think this is the end of the game, unfortunately. Yeah. With 2 Invaders of the Throne and Awoo having all the monster advantage, there wasn't a whole lot Z-Turken could do in that situation, the downside of that monster. But we will start off with a Blue Eyes into the Magician of Fate to get back the Nobleman of Crossout. And we'll follow that up with a Kazajan equipped with Axe of Despair to kill Blue Eyes White Dragon. We'll immediately Darkhold that. That's a very scary monster. But then a Wu has Call of the Haunted on Kazajan, which you do not like to see if you're Z-Turken. Ooh, we had a Wu attempting to use Monster Reborn to target Blue Eyes White Dragon. Z-Turken had the out, though, by chaining Call of the Haunted to resurrect the Blue Eyes White Dragon. A Wu no longer had a target for the Monster Reborn. Very good swing for Z-Turken in this instance, and we're able to kill the Kazajan without losing anything. In this instance, we're gonna Nobleman of Cross out the Invader of the Throne, which, considering that it didn't do very well last game, you may not be the most unhappy to see. We'll switch Cosmo Queen to defense to play around the Mirror Force. Otherwise, Blue Eyes just gets into Magician of Faith, which gets back the Monster Reborn. We'll go Pot of Greed at this point, but a Wu is without monsters now, which is a really dire position to be without either monsters or really effective trap cards to clear out Z-Turken's board. We are looking at a somewhat dire situation. On the bright side, that is just about the best top deck that it could have been, but unfortunately... Oh, never mind. I thought Z-Turken was going to flip summon the Man-Eater Bug in that and I guess it wouldn't have mattered too terribly much unless they thought to go for the Cyberjar. But Z-Turken is just going to go ahead and attack into the set Cyberjar. And it looks like nobody is summoning anything off of Cyberjar. At this point, we are just sitting here with our respective Tri-Horn Dragons. Card destruction will get us deeper into the deck. Z-Turken has to start thinking about deck out. They're not quite at the danger zone, but with 19 cards left, it is going to become more of a factor. But Fissure is fantastic. We've got a Wall of Labyrinth, but we do have a Metalmorph to get over it, but a Wu has their own Metalmorph to stop the Labyrinth Wall from dying. We get to stop defense the Mask of Darkness. Unfortunately, we would have, there are much better targets for stop defense. In this instance, the Mask of Darkness mostly just gets to resolve its effect without hassle. That wouldn't have been enough damage to make Z-Turken too terribly worried, but even with that, we just have the Mirror Force. We get to go Heavy Storm to clear out all the back row. And then Painful Choice into Metalmorph. Into Man-Eater Bug to kill the Labyrinth Wall, and then Dust Tornado, and I think that is going to clear it up for this game with a massive, massive Buster Blader off the top, combined with already the power of Tri-Horned Dragon. Z-Turken is able to knock a Wu's Jar strategy out of the finals and advance themselves into the final match. The other semifinals game is going to be Scheme 165 versus Aslion. Right off the bat, we try to do the Gaia Power strat, but it falters somewhat. We're able, on Aslion's side, to pretty effectively protect this Wing Weaver, and then Nobleman a Magician of Faith. Trihorn Dragon is finally able to take out the Wingweaver, but then it immediately comes out back with Call of the Haunted, and then Aslion has Rush Recklessly as a follow-up to defeat the Trihorn Dragon, attacks directly with Witch of the Black Forest. Cosmo Queen will get over the Wingweaver once again. And now Aslion is on the back foot a little bit here, but that Maneater bug will help to reverse their fortunes quite a bit. We've got a Mystic Tomato face down, and with no monsters summoned, Aslion will go ahead and try to hit in with it. Scheme has the Call of the Haunted to keep the attack from going in, and then the Fissure to kill the Mystic Tomato without allowing Aslion to get any searches off of it, and then a big direct hit with Cosmo Queen. And then, hilariously, Scheme is going to risk it. This would have been a little bit rough for them if they had attacked into a Mirror Force, but because it was actually Dust Tornado, that was the best thing Aslion had on hand. This was absolutely the correct play. Dust Tornado takes out the Call of the Haunted, which kills Cosmo Queen, and then on Aslion's turn, they are able to Monster Reborn the Cosmo Queen. Too nervous to attack, and in this instance they were completely correct because there is a Mirror Force back there. During Scheme's turn, they will attempt to Sword Hunter over Cosmo Queen using Metal Morph, and Aslion will Solemn Judgment the Metal Morph. Scheme sets a Man-Eater bug. Aslion going for lethal, getting Mirror Forced. And yeah, a pretty close game when we got down to it, but Scheme ended up on the right side of Blue Eyes White Dragon and removal. In this game, we do Mirror Wall to protect the Gaia the Fierce Knight from the Sword Hunter, giving Scheme a head start on this particular game. Gaia goes down off of Wingweaver, subsequently Fissure kills the Wingweaver, and Trap Hole kills the Sword Hunter, leaving Scheme with a Man-Eater bug. As a follow-up, Nobleman of Crossout into the Witch of the Black Forest is pretty good, and Trihorn Dragon also feels pretty nice, but that is a really solid Dark Hole off of Aslion, and following it up with a very powerful Blue Eyes White Dragon. And we will go ahead and Solemn Judgment that Mirror Force to maintain the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Now we do have, is it 888 life points? We have been seeing some bizarre life point totals over the course of this game. I guess it's the combination of Solemn Judgment and Metal Morph both being meta relevant. Now, with the back row being the way it is, pretty much any monster that Scheme could draw wins the game. Well, no, not really, because Scheme had a normal summon and set the Man-Eater bug. But that is going to be a Buster Blader with 3100 attack, attacking into Blue Eyes White Dragon, which will gain 300 off of the Metal Morph, allowing Aslion to win this battle, fissuring the Blue Eyes White Dragon. And then Scheme is going to try to set a card that wouldn't have done much anyway, and will lose the game to Aslion's. I don't think Aslion even needed the Monster Reborn in that instance, but yeah. Out-tempoed in Game 2, which leads us into Game 3. Man-Eater bug for Gaia the Fierce Knight, Trap Hole for Wingweaver, and then Trihorn Dragon gets in directly. Kazajan will inflict some damage to Scheme right off the bat, but Trihorn Dragon will try to get over the Kazajan, will instead eat the Waboku. Dust Tornado during Aslion's turn will take out the Metal Morph. Kazajan will kill Gaia the Fierce Knight. We get to Fissure the Trihorn Dragon. Cosmo Queen gets to take out Kazajan. And then, interesting that we did activate Gaia power in main phase 2. There are punishes to this. There are, like, instances where Aslion draws Earth monsters. But none of that matters because Aslion is going to go Invader of the Throne, steal Cosmo Queen. Puts Scheme a little bit on the back foot, but their hand is nothing but removal, so not for too terribly long. We go Wingweaver into the Man-Eater bug, we trade. We go Gaia the Fierce Knight directly. Fissure for Gaia the Fierce Knight. and we are too scared to attack directly with Sword Hunter, which we had reason to be because there was a Mirror Force there. Does Asline? Asline also has a Mirror Force, so Scheme has to be worried along the same lines. With Pot of Greed having been activated this turn, they are unable to Heavy Storm, and they make the decision to not summon anything, presumably to use the Heavy Storm at a future turn. We'll go Nobleman on Mystic, go Elephantis, which gets killed by Mirror Force, Trihorn Dragon into Magician of Faith for the Fissure, Fissure into Trihorn Dragon, Maneater Bug for Maneater Bug, Maneater Bug attacks directly, and we will go for... Oh, fascinating. We're gonna attack Cosmo Queen into the attack position Maneater Bug for lethal. Asline is able to avoid dying on the spot by using Metamorph to buff the Maneater Bug, which still dies. With Buster Blader at 3,600 attack and the Giant Trunade bouncing the Call of the Haunted, which sends Cosmo Queen to the graveyard, Scheme is down to just 100 life points. This game is gonna come down to the wire. It depends on what Scheme draws here. And that should actually be the end of the game, with Fissure and no back row on Asline's part. Yeah, that will be a very, very close match, but Asline has been knocked out, and Scheme advances into the final match. And alrighty, folks, that is going to be your finalists for Junior Trials Future Visions 2002. The winner of this match is the winner of this tournament, Z-Turkin versus Scheme 165. Good luck to both duelists. We're gonna start off with a pretty good board for Z-Turkin, using MST to take out the Rush recklessly. Scheme gets a good follow-up with Dark Hole, but is still a little bit low on life points. Unfortunately, Z-Turkin doesn't have a way to protect this Invader of the Throne, therefore it's not really effective to play it. Scheme is gonna get another MST off. And then, hilariously, Z-Turkin is able to clear this Buster Blader with Blue Eyes White Dragon by preemptively sword and shielding it, meaning its attack points are going to be 2,300 plus 500, which will be 2,800. But Scheme is able to do the Shock Rush recklessly and take Z-Turkin out of the game for game 1. Alright. Very... hilariously similar to how the first game started, with a Gaia the Fierce Knight and an MST to kill the Rush recklessly. Here we will go Dust Tornado just to set an additional card. Trihorn Dragon will get into Khazajin just to resolve its effect. Meanwhile, Khazajin and Trihorn Dragon will clear Scheme's board and take out some of their life points. And with a Heavy Storm to clear Scheme's back row, that will be game 2, leading us into the final game of this tournament. And we just cannot start a single one of these games without somebody finding the one of MST to start off. That was, yeah, that was a really interesting, that was an interesting choice. Whenever your Maneater Bug is flipped face up and your opponent has 2 guys, which is a Bungus and a Set monster, because there are a number of flip effect monsters that you feel really good about popping with Maneater Bug, but if that's a Sangan or a Witch of the Black Forest, you feel terrible about leaving the Wingweaver. And also, the fact that Scheme doesn't have anything big enough to kill Wingweaver yet also probably plays into it. Sword Hunter is not big enough to kill this dragon. Cosmo Queen will attack into that Sword Hunter, and Scheme is sitting here with two Shadow of Eyes, both of which are just kind of taking up space right now. I guess with the dragon, Scheme chose to do the Kazagen effect. I hope they didn't think that the effect was mandatory. Maybe they just wanted to hit the damage. But yeah. Premat is going to get Cosmo Queen in this situation, which is going to get Mirror Force. But we do have a Mirror Force of our own to stay alive. Now, that was technically a cheat. That was 2 traps in 1 game, but I don't think that it affected anything because the... Oh, no, it probably would have, because, like, the Dust Tornado would have been able to resolve. That is interesting. That was 2 trap cards. I'm not entirely sure how in the ratio of things and the tempo of things, how that would play out. But we are gonna get a Sword Hunter that is going to get fissured, and now we are both essentially back to 0, and that is going to be a resolution of Shadow of Eyes to get the Maneater bug in attack mode. And with a Fissure to take out the Elephantus and a Buster Blader, that Scheme is unable to stop. Even the Mirror Wall, which would half its attack points, wouldn't be enough. That is going to be Z Turken with the finals. Yeah, that is 2002 formats in a nutshell. I think this tournament did a pretty good job of showcasing how even in Bungus format, just like having stuff like Maneater Bug and the Magician of Faith and the Mask of Darkness, just having these monsters that like can use their effects to gain some kind of advantage is really, really important. A couple of flip decks made it into the top cut, but ultimately they were defeated by both Scheme and Z Turken. Similar to what happened when Sophie and I recorded the first episode of Junior Trials, kind of Max Power Empty Jar in Junior format 2002. Is a thing that exists, but if you are planning for it, it does have a lot of trouble closing out games, especially once your opponent gets the opportunity to side deck. That is going to do it for this Patreon episode of Junior Trials. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for supporting me on patreon.com. Your support helps me stay alive under late stage capitalism. Your support on Patreon gives me hope that one fucking day I get to leave this dog shit ass country that fucking sucks and is terrible. Even though I did absolutely terrible in this tournament, even though I did just about as badly as I possibly could have, I had a good time playing, I had a good time watching, and I will see y'all in the next one of these. Goodbye.